This is Eric Blank. Today is November 27th, and this is the Commissioner's Weekly Meeting. Commissioner Plant, any preliminary matters? Or are you ready to approve the consent item as presented?
Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving, early and pre-engorgement. I am ready to approve the consent agenda.
Just know the engorgement has already started in my house. Commissioner Gilman.
Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving early as well. And no, I'd vote to approve the consent agenda.
As do I. Proceeding number 24A-0459R. Ms. Sava.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Jessica Sava with the Rail Transit Safety Section. On October 24th, 2024, RTD filed an application requesting approval of its Public Transportation Safety Plan, which I will refer to as the PTASP, for its rail fixed guideway system. RTD provided documentation showing the PTASP was signed by the General Manager, CEO, Chief Safety Officer, and was approved by the RTD Joint Safety Committee and RTD Board of Directors. As RTD continues to evolve its PTASP with continued development of RTD's safety management systems, this document will have significant changes over time as RTD creates and updates documentation, processes, and procedures on the ongoing forward basis. These changes will include changes from staff audit findings, revising the accident investigation procedure, review, development, and future development of an emergency management plan, safety committee implementation and revision, the development of electronic reporting and logs to be used in notification of the Commission of accidents, hazards, and events. I included a copy of the checklist that outlines the specific information that we verified was contained within the PTASP for your information if interested. That's all I got.
Commissioner Plant.
I agree with the recommendation.
Commissioner Gilman.
Thanks, Ms. Sava. I also agree.
Thanks.
As do I, and that can be an ABC decision granting the application. So thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Fishaber, temporary rules to implement wayside detection and reporting.
Good morning, Commissioners, and happy Thanksgiving. I'm Pam Fishaber with the Deputy Director of Public Safety. This morning is coming before you the first of what will be many rulemakings concerning House Bill 24-1030, which deals with railroad safety. Before you this morning are temporary rules to enact wayside detector system report requirements. The first report is due from the railroads by January 1st of 2025. So by enacting the emergency rules today, temporary rules, they will be able to know what to file in those reports. We will come back and propose further rules in the future, but for this morning, it's just the temporary rules. So if there are no questions, staff's ready for recommendation.
If you could go to your recommendation, that'd be great.
Staff would recommend that the Commission enact the temporary rules for the wayside detector system reports.
Just one quick question. So these wayside detectors can detect bad wheels, bad couplings, bad ball bearings, and prevent accidents. Is that sort of the intuition here, even if said poorly?
No, you did just fine. Two of the main detectors that are outlined in House Bill 1030 are dragging equipment detectors, which can detect if anything is dragging and perhaps hitting rails or ties, and then hot bearing detectors, which can determine if there are bearings within the wheels that are hot and that the train should be stopped until those cool down. But there may be additional types of detectors out there right now.
Smart to me. Commissioner Plant.
I agree with the recommendation.
Commissioner Gilman.
I also agree.
As do I, and that can be an ABC decision adopting the temporary rule. So thank you, Dr. Fishaber.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Mr. Riley, 2024 annual towing report to the legislature.
Good morning, commissioners, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone as well. Nate Riley with transportation staff. Based on the passing of House Bill 21-1283, an annual towing report drafted by the PUC and submitted to the state legislature was instituted, pursuant to 40-10.1-4034D CRS. Initially, this report captured some basic information regarding the PUC's regulation of the towing industry in Colorado. The legislature subsequently passed House Bill 22-1314, which significantly expanded the parameters of this report to include information on the PUC's analysis of maximum rates, the implementation of any towing task force recommendations, and more specific information related to complaints, investigations, and enforcement. This report is required to be furnished to the state legislature by December 1st of each year, more specifically to the House of Representatives, Transportation and Local Government, and Business Affairs and Labor Committees, as well as the Senate's Business, Labor and Technology, and Transportation and Energy Committees. This year's annual towing report has been drafted, and we are happy to share some of the highlights from this report. The reference time frame for these data points is November 1st of 2023 through October 31st of 2024, which encompasses the most recent 12-month period. During this time period, the PUC issued 805 towing permits. This figure included both new applications and renewals of already existing permits. The PUC's Consumer Affairs team closed or referred 1,056 towing-related complaints, 912 of which dealt with non-consensual tows. The PUC's Investigations and Compliance Unit within the Transportation section worked 458 investigations, 415 of which dealt with non-consensual tows. As a result of these complaints and investigations, towing carriers were cited for 38 civil penalties, totaling almost $1.6 million in fines. In addition, 112 violation warning letters were issued to towing carriers, citing various conduct. In regards to consumer protection, the PUC's involvement in these towing-related complaints and investigations resulted in 182 refunds being secured, totaling almost $100,000 in financial relief. It should be noted that this figure does not include situations when the PUC was responsible for towed vehicles being released back to consumers at no charge, which also provided significant financial relief. While the median time for Consumer Affairs to resolve a complaint was just over a week, or 8 days, the median time taken for investigations team to resolve an investigation was under 2 months, or 50 days. It should also be noted that many complaints and investigations are addressed in less than a week. Thank you for the opportunity to share this information in a transparent way, and we look forward to continuing our regulation of the towing industry moving forward. This time, I'm happy to respond to any questions or comments.
I just appreciate you sharing the report early, presenting it publicly, and thought the final version was clear, readable, and helped explain what we're doing. So thank you, Mr. Riley. Commissioner Plant, comments?
Yeah, no, I just share that. Thanks for all the work that your staff put into compiling all this information and presenting it in a really clear manner. I know that the legislature's requested this information to the committee, and I know that it informs a lot of the decisions that they make. And I think this will give them a lot of great factual information to as they look at different legislation that might be coming in front of them. So really appreciate the work that you did.
Commissioner Gilman.
Likewise, thanks for the summary, Mr. Riley, and appreciate the information you pulled together in the report, and hope it's of use to the legislature.
I don't think we're taking a vote. I think we're just discussing the report, but you certainly have my blessing to send it over to the legislature. Oh, Commissioner Plant.
I just had one quick question. Is this going to be available for the public on our website in some location that we should share?
Yes, Commissioner, it will. In fact, we have both the 2022 and 2023 reports as well up on the. We actually have 4 different towing related web pages. We have kind of a landing page that people get to, which then goes to sub pages. One is kind of more formatted for the towing carriers themselves, so things like permit renewals, insurance filings, things like that, as well as references to legislation and interpretations and things like that. Whereas another page is more based on consumer information, so like how to file a complaint and things like that. And then we also have a link to the Towing Task Force's website as well. So on that main landing page is where those are found.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Proceeding number 16A-0436E, Ms. Crandall, Black Hills Res Compliance.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Kelly Crandall with the advisory staff. We have 2 annual res compliance reports from Black Hills and then Public Service. So if you're okay with that, I can provide a brief overview for both proceedings and then go through one after the other.
Yep.
Thank you. Electric utilities are required to meet state renewable energy standard or RES requirements under section 40-2-124 of the Colorado revised statutes and commission rules. And so under this, they have to generate or cause to be generated from a variety of eligible energy resources, which includes a lot of things, including wind, solar, and so forth. At least 30% of their retail electricity sales annually, with distributed generation or DG equaling at least 3% of sales, at least 1.5% of which must be retail DG. These annual compliance reports are required by Electric Rule 3662, and Rule 3663 establishes the review process we're going through today, which includes notice and comments and a review by staff of the commission. The commission received each report from Black Hills Colorado Electric and Public Service Company of Colorado and provided notice. Due to the press of business, the commission granted extensions to staff to file their review reports, and no other comments were received on the reports. So for each report, the commission determines under Rule 3663 whether the utility is complied with the RES, both generally and as it relates to DG, whether it's calculated net incremental costs for certain upcoming resources, and whether a hearing is necessary to assess compliance. The commission also addresses the carryover of renewable energy credits to future years. So I can move to the Black Hills report first.
That'd be great.
I'll provide rounded numbers, but the actuals are in the reports and will be in the decisions. Black Hills reported about 1.8 million megawatt hours of retail electric sales in 2023, which means RECs comprising 540,000 megawatt hours had to be retired. The majority of this came from Peak View and Bush Ranch wind projects. About 53,000 megawatt hours had to be DG, of which 27,000 had to be retail. So the DG requirements were met through community solar gardens, purchased renewable energy credits, carried forward RECs. The DG requirements came generally through on-site solar and purchased RECs. Black Hills intends to carry forward about 18,500 megawatt hours in RECs, and overall it collected $5.7 million in RESA revenues in 2023 and expended $3.5 million. So the expenditures were within the 2% retail rate impact for the renewable energy standard. Overall, staff agrees with Black Hills it complied with the RES requirements and no hearing is necessary. But staff did add that Black Hills report didn't sufficiently address the level of benefits provided to income qualified customers in disproportionately impacted communities, which I'll call DI communities. Given Senate Bill 21-272 and the approved settlement from the proceeding, staff calculated Black Hills should have focused just over $2 million of its renewable energy standard adjustment revenues to customers who are income qualified or in disproportionately impacted communities. But in practice, it spent less than $200,000, which was mostly on solar garden credits. Staff also found that 31% of total CSG customers were income qualified and DI community customers, but they were only receiving 10% of the bill credits awarded. Staff further states it had to obtain this information from an audit, not just from the report itself, and that Black Hills is continuing to work toward mapping customers to the census Black groups associated with DI communities. So with that overview, I can make a recommendation on the Black Hills report.
That'd be great.
Advisors have reviewed both the company's motion and report and staff's review of the report. And while we see some minor ambiguities, they don't change the overall conclusion that Black Hills has met the RES requirements. So accordingly, we recommend the commission grant Black Hills motion for approval of its 2023 annual compliance report and state that Black Hills has met Rule 3663 requirements around compliance with the RES, including for renewable distributed generation, and that provisions around future eligible energy resources are inapplicable. And we recommend the commission find that no hearing is necessary. However, Black Hills is behind in allocating actual funding to income qualified and DI communities programs as compared to projections. There are additional community solar gardens that would serve those customers who are and they're anticipated to be online in 2025, and that may increase participation. But I suggest the commission state an expectation that Black Hills get back on track with allocating benefits to those customer groups by the time of the next compliance report, and that it needs to improve its reporting accordingly so that staff isn't obtaining this information by separate audit. And the commission could also express concerns about Black Hill's slow progress in mapping disproportionately impacted communities, given that the legislation establishing the concept was first passed in 2021, and it's now a 2023 report in 2024.
Commissioner Plant.
Yeah, I agree with the recommendation, including the additional recommendations that Ms. Crandall articulated.
Commissioner Goman.
Yeah, I agree, Ms. Crandall, and thank you for specifically pointing out really what looks like substantial underperformance in the area of serving IQ and DI communities. And just wondering, I mean, especially given kind of the statutory references here and the intent or understanding that 40% of the funding would be going to serving IQ and DI customers, and seeing that's really far from what's playing out right now. We can get more reporting. Is there any other recourse, anything else more substantial, that you can suggest to us to advance that issue, in kind of a very serious way? It's a pretty concerning failure here.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that, and I think staff did good work in obtaining more information on this issue. I don't have a specific recommendation for something distinct that could be done here. I can mention two upcoming activities that may help this issue. One being the commission is going to, well, we are working as staff and bringing forward a rulemaking to you all regarding Senate Bill 272, looking at early next year, so first quarter of 2025, contingent on just, how much longer it takes to kind of go through red lines and things like that. And so I think that process will hopefully help reveal more of the specifics of how this kind of work should be allocated and evaluated. The other thing I would mention is early in December, I'd like to bring forward a recommendation for you all to schedule a work planning session around income qualified programs, which would include looking at how programs could be kind of better aligned and combined. And so that may also be a way of looking at this, because it could be looking at how to break down barriers and get more people enrolled in more programs.
Yeah, but we don't understand from the company. I mean, it seems as though, especially since it took staff doing an audit to get the actual data, I don't think we understand the areas the company perceives they're struggling in terms of how can we help them get better progress here to better serve their customers.
Right, and not from the information in this case at this point. I mean, certainly this is a 2023 compliance report, and other proceedings have been filed that touch on these kinds of issues. But yeah, I think we don't really understand what some of the challenges might be here from what we've got.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, and as you said, appreciate staff following up so we could at least get the numbers to understand what's going on here, and appreciate your suggestions to try to advance this. But it seems like they didn't miss by a little. We're missing by a lot in terms of hitting the targets to support their IQ and DI customers, and certainly hope we see advances in that area as you suggested. Other than that, I agree with your suggestion.
I also support the recommendations, and that can be an ABC granting the motion consistent with the discussion. Want to jump to public service?
Great, thank you. Yes. Public service reported about 28 million megawatt hours of retail electric sales in 2023, and that means RECs comprising 8.5 million megawatt hours had to be retired. The majority of this came from Rush Creek, Cheyenne Ridge, and other wind projects. About 840,000 megawatt hours had to be distributed generation, of which 420,000 megawatt hours had to be retail. DG requirements were met through a mix of solar, wind, biomass, and hydro contracts. The DG retail requirements were met through on-site solar and community solar gardens. Public service intends to carry forward about 30 million megawatt hours in RECs. Overall, it collected $33 million in RESA revenues in 2023, and it continues to operate within the 1% renewable energy standard adjustment rate. In its review, staff agreed with public service that it has complied with RES requirements and that no hearing is necessary. And so I can make a recommendation.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Advisors have reviewed both the company's motion have reviewed the company's report and staff's review of the report. We recommend the commission state that public service has met Rule 3663 requirements around compliance with the renewable energy standard, including for renewable DG, and that provisions around future eligible energy resources are inapplicable. We recommend the commission find that no hearing is necessary.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree with the recommendation.
Commissioner Gilman,
I also agree.
as do I. And again, that can be an ABC decision, Ms. Crandall.
Great. Thank you very much, commissioners.
Thank you. Let's skip to number 4, proceeding number 24A-0500G, CNG notice, motion for short notice. Mr. Davis.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm Ron Davis of the Commission's advisory staff. On November 18th, Colorado Natural Gas filed an application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity for a new distribution mainline to provide additional gas service to Grupo Cementos de Chihuahua of America, or GCC. GCC is an existing CNG customer that currently uses natural gas, but only for limited purposes. The majority of the fuel consumed by the cement facility is used to heat the kiln, and GCC has historically relied mainly on coal and tire-derived fuel to heat that kiln. GCC wants to add natural gas to the mix of available kiln fuels. The use of natural gas instead of coal is also a component of GCC's greenhouse gas emissions and energy management compliance action plan. That plan is to meet an emission reduction target of approximately 30% by 2030, in accordance with requirements set by the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. CNG explains in the application that its existing system is inadequate to deliver increased natural gas volumes to the facility, and to provide such throughput capacity, it's necessary for CNG to construct a new distribution main line. That line will connect to Colorado Interstate Gas and will pass through unserved areas between the CIG tap and the customer's location. CNG filed this application with a stipulation and settlement agreement that it reached with staff of the commission and the Colorado Office of the Utility Consumer Advocate. It's expected, therefore, that neither staff nor UCA will object to the commission granting the application. CNG argues that time is of the essence so that it can begin, so that the customer can begin using natural gas instead of coal as soon as possible in 2025. Therefore, CNG requests that the commission set a shortened notice and intervention period and to rule expeditiously on the merits of the application. So that is the question for you to take up this morning on a shortened notice and intervention period, and I could provide a recommendation if you'd like.
We'd like.
Okay, I recommend that intervention pleadings be due December 6th, 2024. And if the application is uncontested, the commission can take up the merits of it at a weekly meeting before the end of the year.
Commissioner Plant,
I agree with the recommendation.
Commissioner Gilman,
I also agree.
as do I, and that can be an ABC decision granting the motion for short notice. So thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
Proceeding number 24A-0442E, Mr. Eden.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. I'm Michael Lean with your advisory staff. At last week's meeting, advisors and Commission Council presented for the first time the Just Transition Solicitation, or JTS, application that Public Service Company of Colorado filed on October 15th, 2024. During the ensuing discussion, the Commission requested a more robust presentation of public services compliance with the directives from the 2021 Electric Resource Plan, or ERP, and Clean Energy Plan, CEP, for purposes of determining whether to deem the JTS application complete. Throughout the course of the 2021 ERP CEP, the Commission established several requirements for the JTS application. Most of these requirements were intended to correct shortcomings from the 2021 ERP CEP. Advisors have reviewed these various requirements and have identified a handful of instances in which compliance is unclear. This morning, I'll go through a few of these apparent omissions before turning it over to the Commission for a discussion on how to proceed in the context of whether to deem the JTS application complete. In its comments on the 120-day report and the 2021 ERP CEP, Conservation Coalition reiterated its concerns that public service was using the weighted average cost of capital, or WACC, to discount the social costs of carbon and methane. Conservation Coalition argued that the social cost of emissions are already developed using social discount rates, and thus the company's practice of also discounting with WACC results in an inappropriately high discount rate. In the Phase 2 decision, the Commission found merit in Conservation Coalition's argument and directed the company to confer with stakeholders to reach a consensus approach to discounting the social cost of emissions for the 2024 JTS. However, advisors are not aware of a specific reference in the JTS materials that a consensus approach to discounting the social cost of emissions was developed through stakeholder conferral. In fact, Volume 2 states that public service again uses WACC to discount all costs, with the exception of carbon-based fuels. As another example, in its application for rehearing, re-argument, or reconsideration, that is the triple R, that Western Resource Advocates, or WRA, filed to the Commission's Phase 2 decision, WRA noted the Commission's concerns about the lack of notice bidders had regarding the strategic locational value of certain gas resources. In its triple R, WRA asked that the Commission direct public service to fully address this issue in the company's Phase 1 filing in the JTS. The Commission agreed with WRA and granted this triple R request. In its Phase 1 filings, Public Service proposes the concept of a transmission adder and credit system that would essentially incentivize resources to be located within the Denver metro area. Apart from this transmission adder and credit system, however, advisors are not aware of Public Service discussing how it will ensure that bidders will know about the strategic locational value of gas resources. I'll note that this concept is similar to an issue Commissioner Gilman raised at last week's meeting as to how the Commission can ensure that bidders are well informed about the locational value of certain generation resources. In a related example, in its triple R, Conservation Coalition asserted that Public Service revealed locational reliability requirements for the first time in the 120-day report, but deliberately constructed the Phase 2 portfolios so that only its preferred portfolio and related versions of the preferred portfolio would satisfy these new reliability requirements. Conservation Coalition argued that in the JTS, the company should be prohibited from using any reliability metrics or methodologies in Phase 2 that have not been previously approved by the Commission. The Commission saw merit in this proposal, but determined that such a directive would be more appropriate in the Phase 1 decision of the JTS, as opposed to a triple R decision in the 2021 ERP CEP. Accordingly, the Commission directed Public Service to explain its position on Conservation Coalition's request in its Phase 1 JTS filing. Advisors note that in its JTS filing, Public Service puts forth a new reliability rubric to evaluate and, where necessary, rectify portfolio reliability. Nevertheless, we are unaware of any explanation from Public Service on whether the company should be prohibited from using novel reliability metrics in Phase 2. In other words, Public Service does not appear to address Conservation Coalition's triple R argument that the company be prohibited from using a previously unapproved reliability metric or methodology. There are a couple other directives that also do not appear to meet that. For instance, directives from the Phase 1 decision and Phase 1 RRR decision requiring public service to address arguments from Conservation Coalition and CREZ as to the specifics of the company's planning reserve margin study and the effective load carrying capability, or ELCC methodology. Again, there's plenty of information with the company's JTS filing regarding the new planning reserve margin and ELCC methodology, but it's not clear that the specific arguments from Phase 1 were addressed. All that being said, I don't want to give the impression that the company completely ignored the Commission's prior decisions. There were several requirements coming out of the 2021 ERP-CP, but for the sake of brevity, my presentation today is just focused on the directives that appear to be unsatisfied. So with all of that, I'll open it up for your discussion on how to proceed regarding these directives and the issue of completeness. I'm happy to answer questions or can also offer a recommendation.
Why don't I start with you, Commissioner Gilman? I know you had most of the concern about the deeming it complete, and just wanted to see where you're at after you've had another week to think about it and go through the issues.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it, and appreciate Ms. Dreden and the team of advisors and counsel who are looking at this, as well as other aspects of the application, especially last week was a pretty busy week. So getting the time to take a look at this. At the end of the day, I'm not convinced any of these are showstoppers and should lead us to not determine completeness here. But I think this is an important task to ensure that as we finish a proceeding of some type, or even related, not even the same type, that the company is actually following through with what they were ordered to do in previous decisions. It's been somewhat of a chronic problem in the past that things have not necessarily been done, and here we see some yes, some no, and just a bunch unclear in that it can be difficult to sift through very quickly, hundreds if not thousands of pages to find where the directives were followed. So in this specific instance, I'd be okay with us deeming the application complete today. I think there are a couple of these issues we might want to just bring to our supplemental direct discussion to be sure we are where we want to be with the information at the onset of the proceeding. It certainly will not behoove us to have delays later in the proceeding, as we've been learning over and over in the previous ERP. So ensuring that we have really the most complete set of information at the onset, and realizing we may need to follow up in a few of these areas on supplemental direct to ensure that we have that information. The other thing that strikes me that we'll probably want to think about in this and other proceedings as we go forward, to the extent we have directives for upcoming proceedings in any of those decisions, I think it might be worthwhile within those decisions to also ask the company to identify where in their initial filings they respond to commission directives. Could certainly be very helpful, especially to our team, in getting into these very early proceedings as they come in the door and ensuring we're at a proper starting place. So I think constantly learning the best ways to get us moving in these proceedings with all of the information as quickly as possible. So I'd be okay going with completeness today, but perhaps following up on a few of these issues in that supplemental direct, and also, having ourselves and our team focus on, as we give these directives in different proceedings, to ensure they're clear, and perhaps give a directive that the company indicate where in the next proceedings the information exists, since many of them it's unclear or very difficult to find if the directives were followed.
So I certainly land in the same place. I'll turn it to you, Commissioner Plant, in a second, but just a clarifying question. So it sounds like we'll have an order coming out of today affirmatively saying we find this complete. Do you want to have today's order go through some of the deficiencies, or do you want to wait until we have the supplemental direct testimony order to do that? Do you have a preference, Commissioner Gilman? And Mr. Eden may have a preference not to ruin another Wednesday afternoon for him. But
I mean,
I'll
I
start
think
with
it'll
you.
auto deem somewhat soon, right, Mr. Eden? I mean, I'm not opposed to allowing it to auto deem, and then we kind of pick up the pieces of this and supplemental direct in terms of areas we
I
think.
think I'd like to affirmatively deem it complete with at least some discussion. Well, we'll see what Commissioner Plant says. Why don't we go to Commissioner Plant, and then we'll go to Council and Mr. Eden.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Gilman in terms of an approach. I think we can address most of these issues in supplemental direct. Or all the, significant issues in supplemental direct. I am also, I was kind of thinking, as I think Commissioner Gilman was, and sort of how we avoid this problem in the future. I don't know if it's by listing, the various different directives within the advice letter, or and then referencing them within the testimony. It seems like we need to sort of have a list of what they've addressed, so that we know where the gaps are. And I think this particular proceeding maybe was a little bit more difficult just because a number of other proceedings sort of deferred some issues to the JTS because they weren't adequately addressed in the other proceedings. And so there was a real variety of places where these directives were coming from. So yeah, it would be helpful, I think, if the company were to incorporate an accounting of the various directives that they're responding to within their testimony in future cases.
Thank you, Commissioner Plant. Mr. Eden, Ms. McLaughlin, I think it'd be good to get out at least a brief order deeming it complete, subject to concerns and maybe a list of issues, but your thoughts?
We were prepared and think it would be possible to get a decision out today that, similar to my presentation, gives examples of some of the areas of concern as they relate to the 2021 ERP and CEP directives, and to have that issue before it auto deems complete on November 30th. Question for the commission I have is whether you would like to have that deemed complete today, or whether you would choose to have that deemed complete on November 30th. It's not much of a difference, but it would provide an additional 3 days on the statutory deadline.
Yeah, we'll take the 3 days, just deem it complete November 30th. Is that okay, Commissioner Gomez?
That's fine with me.
Commissioner Plant?
Yep.
All right. Does that give you what you need, Mr. Eden? And that, of course, can be an ABC decision.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Ms. McLaughlin, anything you wanted to jump in before we adjourn?
No, just the clarifications that Mr. Eden provided is, I think, what we need, and we'll get that out today.
Commissioner Plant, other than wish for everybody to have a happy Thanksgiving, which feel free to make again, anything final?
No, nothing additional. Enjoy your holiday.
You too. Commissioner Gilman.
That's it, everyone. I hope everyone inside the PUC, outside the PUC, gets to enjoy a day or two off, relaxation, friends or family, and just wishing everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Likewise, happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
San Fran Bay Area.